All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. As was just introduced, and I just intoned to no one. I'm going to be talking about some best practice to improve an existing project online solution. Maybe you have taken the advice of some of the earlier presenters, and you've kind of taken a crawl, walk, run approach to your PPM solution. And so you've kind of had it going, and now we're looking for ways to improve on that. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So as such, I'm going to give you some examples for that solution, these solution improvements. We're not going to go into all of them. We're going to talk in detail or limited detail about 3 of them. And then we'll kind of discuss some next steps that your organization could take. And then we'll move on to a Q&A. All right, so one option is if you have a solution and you're looking for possibilities to extend the functionality of that solution, is you can look to enable some of the features that are existing in the solution, but maybe you didn't decide to engage right out of the gate. Okay. So how would we go about doing that? Do we just simply turn them on, kind of willy-nilly? Really, this type of an improvement ought to be part of some type of a continuous improvement regimen that you've initiated there within your organization. So maybe you have a suggestion box type of thing, or maybe you have some roundtable sessions with your user base, and so you collect this feedback, and then once a month you kind of prioritize, what these options might be, and then you will decide on them and then roll them out. And these could be anything from, hey, we need some additional custom fields, or maybe the custom fields that we had envisioned to use during our implementation aren't really bringing us the value that we had expected, or maybe there's just a different way to do it. But anyway, just the key here is this should be part of a continuous, improvement regimen that just it goes on in perpetuity. Another option would be to extend the solution to other departments. So this is where you have had some success inside your organization, and you are looking to duplicate that success, but maybe for some additional departments. Like maybe you're in IT, and the accounting or the procurement departments would like to, jump on board and share in your success. And so the way you're going to spread this adoption throughout the organization is you're going to plan a rollout. And then with that rollout, you're also going to make sure that your users are prepared, and you're going to plan some training. So this is going to be through a systematic planned rollout process, not just bring them on board and let them play, really put some thought and some time into it and have a plan. All right, maybe you are on-prem. And like Chuck said, he has very few clients that are still, on-prem in Project Server. If you're in the Microsoft flavor of PPM, maybe that you've had some type of a, mandate that says we need to move from on-prem to the cloud. And the best way to go about doing that is to, not take this move lightly. You're definitely going to want to leverage some competent, some experienced implementers that have a proven track record with migrations to the cloud. We've heard some talk about integration. So what are some of these opportunities for integration? We've already heard about moving data back and forth, maybe with other line of business systems such as SAP or such as DevOps. Maybe you would like to use, or maybe you currently use Microsoft project sites, but the rest of the organization is starting to adopt more of a Teams-centric approach. And so maybe you would like to do something a little bit differently. Maybe you would like to move from your project sites, which are more SharePoint based, and into Teams. There's some integration opportunities there. So how do we do that? Again, you're going to look for some solution SMEs, some folks that have, a good track record and proven competency with both of the tools that you're being going to integrate from and also integrate into. Integration with this tool, as you've seen and heard already today, it's not impossible, but it does present a number of challenges, and so it is definitely important that you work with some folks that have got some experience doing this. All right, what else? How about automation? We also saw from Chuck's presentation that there are some tools in the Microsoft stack that we can use to automate some routine or time-consuming activities, such as Power Automate, Microsoft Flow. Here again, probably seeing a pattern here. You're going to want to, leverage some solution SMEs and developers who have some solid experience with these technologies. All right, and finally, always room for improvement. We can improve our reporting. We can produce more reports, or maybe we can re-engineer some of the reports that we are currently using. Perhaps you made use of, the freebie, the content pack, and for a time, that did all of your reporting needs. But as time goes on, maybe we've seen some examples in other departments or online, and we're looking to kind of kick our reporting prowess up to the next level. We also might be looking for a way to visualize some stage gating. Maybe we're looking for workflow. That's what the WF stands for up there, workflow capability. So we've got some processes that our user bases follow. Maybe we want to commit those to some type of an electronic format. And just like the automation, we're looking for the same type of thing here. We want to make sure that the people that we engage to make these a reality have some chops when it comes to doing the report development or even the workflow. All right, so the three that we are going to focus on throughout, we're going to talk about extending the solution to other departments. We're going to talk about changing your architecture strategy, and then we're going to talk about refining or adding reporting or workflow capabilities. All right. Extending to another department. So basically, you've had an originating organizational unit that's had a successful PPM solution implementation, and this usage catches the attention of some other organizational units there that coexist with you. Maybe you are the originating successful organizational unit that has put the solution in place. So, the goal here, you're going to roll it out to these other organizational units, but they're all unique. They've got their specific people, they've got their own data. They may have different schedules. Maybe their projects that they manage are completely different than your own. It's quite likely. And they may even have their own process requirements. So you're going to want to bring all of these folks in systematic manner. You're going to want to onboard, one or more of these units, and you're going to want to do it without any disruption to production, because the other, your folks that are currently using the system, time doesn't stop for them just so that we can onboard some other folks. So we definitely have to take production disruption into account. One of the things that we would like to do is we would like to look for areas of similarities between our organizational units, so that we can, gain some efficiencies of implementation there. We also want to make sure that the new users who are going to be participating in the solution after they have been onboarded are adequately prepared. And we're going to want to do that so that they are ready to roll on day one of their go live. All right, so some of the keys to success to rolling out your PPM solution to other organizational units would, just hit the wrong button. My apologies. Let me go back. Okay, is top-down management buy-in. This is one of those kind of solutions that is not to be taken lightly. It can be costly. It can be time-consuming. It's going to capture the the workloads of folks that you have that have other jobs inside the organization already. So top-down management approach or top-down buy-in is definitely a must. The second thing that you're going to want is a very detailed onboarding plan. This onboarding plan is going to have things like we're going to schedule our requirements gathering sessions. We're going to list the people and the SMEs who are going to participate in those onboarding sessions. Keep in mind that these onboarding sessions, they may be subject matter specific. So we don't want to, keep all of our participants, sequestered the entire time. So we would definitely want to plan out accordingly so there's the least amount of impact to our participants. Inside that onboarding plan, we're also going to want to list out, the types of training that is going to be required. Are we going to need to, bring project managers up to speed? Are we going to need to, provide some insight into the tool usage for team members or for executives? So all those should be identified. All the people who are going to be participating should be identified, and those should be scheduled so folks can get them on their calendars. We all have, sometimes cramped calendars, and so getting those out early is going to be a key to your success. And then finally, we're also going to want to provide a communicated go live date. So everybody is aware of the target to which we are shooting for. So there's no confusion there. And while you walk through this, this plan is the key. We're project managers here, or we're, in that realm. We're going to execute exclusively to our detailed onboarding plan. As soon as we start to deviate from our onboarding plan, confusion starts to take root, and it can grow like a weed. So let's try to be as detailed as possible in our plan, and let's strictly execute against that plan.
Hey, Todd, I think we lost your sound again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, so this thing's got a mind of its own. I have no idea why it keeps going on mute. Okay, what was the last thing did you hear? Did you hear me speak to the last slide talking about?
No, we just saw the transition, but we didn't hear anything.
Okay, goodness. Well, if we weren't live, we wouldn't be having some snafus, right? Okay. The last thing that I said after a communicated go live date was that we want to execute strictly against this onboarding plan. That's why we have it, right? We're all project managers or in the project management realm here. Having a plan is key. The moment we start to deviate from our stated onboard plan, the confusion starts to set in and take root and can grow like a weed. So let's be very, very regimented in our execution of our onboarding plan. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. And I'm just going to use my mouse. Maybe hitting my space bar is turning on my mute button. But okay, our next option, migrating your project management solution. So again, the scenario here could be you have an on-prem solution and you are looking to move to the cloud. Maybe the discipline in your organization that owns this solution is mandated that all the applicable on-premise solutions move to the cloud. So if there's a cloud option, let's take it. Some of the ideas behind a cloud move is to streamline your user onboarding to make it easy. Licensing and access, those sort of things are all encapsulated and easy when you're in the cloud. Maybe we just need to reduce our reliance on in-house managed software or our hardware. Maybe our hardware is aging, and we're kind of at the point where we need to make a decision to, buy more hardware or take a move to the cloud. We might even be refocusing some of our IT skill sets. Right? Maybe we no longer have the workforce that we had from an IT perspective to support some of these in-house solutions. So whatever the reason, we're gonna take the plunge and we're gonna go off-prem and into the cloud, onward and upward. So some of the goals and challenges associated with the solution move. You've got a lot of moving parts here to move from one place to another. You've got your users, you've got data that you have accumulated over how many years. There could be processes that are in place, whether they are manual or committed to electronic processes. Obviously, reporting and maybe even possibly integrations. All of those have to be taken into account when you are going to move from point A to point B into the cloud. Another goal would be to make sure that from a resource standpoint, these folks that use the solution are going to be impacted as little as possible. We definitely want the transition to be seamless so that they leave on a Friday and they come back in on a Monday. Maybe they access the solution in a different manner, but once they get there, the look and feel is comfortable for them. So some of the keys to success. For a migration, you're definitely going to want to utilize personnel or solution implementers with expert knowledge of both the on-premise and the cloud version of this solution. That's a big key there. You're also going to want to create a very detailed step-by-step migration checklist. And this is a list that the migrator is going to use to walk through in real time to achieve the migration objective. This checklist they're going to use, it's going to include all of the currently known steps that will take your solution from on-prem and into the cloud, such as all the necessary software prerequisites, if there are any administrator user accounts that need to be set up ahead of time, or if there's any required target solution prep work so that it'll receive the data, things like that. If you can envision these, an activity having to happen, nothing is left to chance. It is all in this list so that it can be checked off one at a time. And so you're also going to perform a migration dry run, and you're going to do this in a test environment that, hopefully is, a perfect match to your production solution. It's possible maybe it doesn't have the same data in it, but from a configuration standpoint, from a hardware standpoint, the software standpoint, they're identical. But you're going to perform this migration dry run using this checklist, and you're going to step through, like I described, every aspect of that checklist. And you're going to do this in this environment, this test environment, so that you can gain an understanding of the accuracy of your migration steps. Did you forget anything? Was any step left out? Were there any gotchas that you didn't that were previously unforeseen? Were there any corrective actions that you needed to take? Also, a big one is the timing. How long did this take? Right. If we've determined that it took, 16 hours, then that kind of, provides us with the insight on when we need to schedule this. Maybe it took, 30 hours. Maybe it took 48 hours. So anyway, it will allow you to plan accordingly. So, keep the list updated. Right, the list is going to be updated during the dry run. So if you noticed any of those gotchas, if you had to add any of those, or you had to take any additional steps, make sure that the checklist gets updated so that when it's used in production, it's 100%. All right, moving on. All right, reporting and lifecycle governance. Lifecycle governance or workflow. This is the electronic process that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So your PPM solution adoption and usage has continued to mature. And Sorry, I just yanked my earbuds out. Your solutions continue to mature, because you're consistently and routinely, updating the solution through your change management processes. You've been adding new fields, and these new fields have been collecting data within the solution, and so it's been in use during the tools for some time. It may not have made it into reporting yet, but there's your opportunity. Maybe that there's also some managers, maybe at the organizational level, the upper management, or even at the project manager levels, and they're looking to use some of the new data that we've collecting in their reports, maybe their status reports or a portfolio report. But we're definitely looking to leverage this data across the portfolio so that we can, continue to provide strategic decision making, via our reports. Maybe from a lifecycle governance, we're looking to commit, some existing manual processes, or maybe we just simply need to update some electronic processes that we had inside the solution. But another key here is that if we're bringing in these electronic workflow processes, now we can start to collect that data and present it in reports. All right, so what are some of the goals and challenges of this? Well, the goal first and foremost with reporting is to eliminate anything manual. We heard from some users earlier in the presentation that there is some manual, work that is left in the hands of the project managers, and that's okay. But you definitely want to move away from that. Let's just cut and paste all of our information from our solution and then put it into a PowerPoint, and then, circulate that PowerPoint via email or Teams or however. But let's just make it self-serve. So let's create some reports that will produce these insightful and intelligent dashboards so that they can be accessed at will. We want to, by using our electronic workflow processes for governance and visibility, we'll be able to minimize, that document shuffling or that inefficient email chains and chat threads. So we just, put this information up there, like maybe it's in Power BI, the Power BI service, and the right folks have the right access to the right data, and they don't have to wait for an email or an updated, manually created report to reach their inbox. They can just go take it from the solution. All right, some of the keys to success. This may start to sound familiar. Top-down management buy-in. A lot of times our reports, what we think might be important may or may not, that data may not be important to the folks that are really using it to make decisions. So let's make sure that we've got management buy-in so that their requirements are understood and executed in any additional development. Another key is to really qualify your requirements. Let's formalize this process, right? It could be, similar to the implementation process where you have, requirement sessions to, bring in the stakeholders so that they can present, their needs and state their needs, but make sure that you've got, before you even start, make sure you've got a plan in place, and so you know exactly what you're looking to produce. You're definitely going to want to align your software options to your organizational skill sets, right? And so if you're looking for Power BI reports, and you don't have anybody in-house, then you're definitely going to want to leverage a third-party implementer such as ourselves to bring in some expertise. But you may want to start planning ahead. If that's going to be your reporting tool of choice, go ahead and start to pick someone who's going to take that role and run with it. Someone who's got a good analytical eye and maybe even an eye for design, and get them started so that they're ready to hit the ground running when new report requests come in. And finally, you want to prepare your users for this new experience, right? If they're used to sending and creating and receiving and updating, manual files, make sure that everybody is aware that, how to access the reports in the cloud if that's where they are. Make sure that everybody is adequately licensed so that they can access any shared reports and things like that. So just make sure that everyone is ready to hit the ground running when they need to be. Okay, so next steps. What are some of the things that we can do as an organization and when we are looking for these improvements? I think number one, it's important to know your current solution. Keep your finger on the pulse of your user base. Are there grievances, with the current solution? Are there opportunities for improvement? Just keep your ear to the ground. Make sure you know how your user base feels about the solution and look for opportunities to improve. I think it's important to share your success with your other departments, right? And at some point, we're all kind of salesmen at some point, in some respects. But if we have gained some efficiencies in our department, we're all playing for the same team, within our organization. And so let's make sure that other departments, if they could benefit from the efficiencies and the success that we've gained through our PPM system and its continuous improvement, then let's make sure that we inform our other departments so they may want to share in that success. Another thing to do is just stay informed, right? Like Chuck mentioned, there aren't versions anymore in these cloud offerings. They just get updated. And so if we're not looking out for them, we might not even know that they're there, right? And so, we can participate in online user groups. There are Yammer groups, there are LinkedIn groups. There are also trade articles out there. And so we can just kind of, in our spare time, make sure that we are aware of some of the cool things that might be coming down the pipe with the solutions that we use. And you can always talk to the pros, right? Reach out to your Microsoft contact, reach out to someone like us, your trusted partner with your solution. We've usually got a wealth of options to share because, we come across so many different users and everybody uses the tool similarly, but everybody uses the tool differently as well. And so just our exposure to all of that might help, bring forth some ideas that could benefit you and your organization. And then lastly, have a plan. Don't leave anything up to chance. Have a solid, circulated, and agreed upon plan and execute against that plan. All right, and that will take me to Q&A. So I'll hand it back over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Todd. So yeah, we've got a couple questions for you here. So how long after a typical initial deployment are you seeing your customers come back to you for enhancements?
That's a great question. I love it. Okay, so it depends, right? Everybody's different. We've had clients that definitely have that understanding that, listen, we don't want our user base to bite off more than they can chew, and so we're just going to get the ball rolling with, maybe a minimum viable product, and we'll look quickly after that to start to roll in some of these changes. Some of these options are planned, like maybe we start off with a phase 1 and then we go to a phase 2. So sometimes we already know that, right? And again, it just depends on your organization. It may be a budgetary constraint. Maybe we started this in Q2 and we're going to use Q2 and Q3 dollars to get the implementation going. And now we need to wait all the way until Q1 to start to do some of these enhancements. I just don't have a solid, answer on that. It just depends for everybody. Some of these are easier than others. The reporting is easier than an integration. I guess an example that I use with my clients, quite often is it also depends on which enhancement you're looking for. If we're going to go with integration, I definitely wouldn't advise going with an integration right off the bat. We want to make sure that, that the adoption is solid, that people are using the tool properly, that you've worked out all the kinks, with your implementation. Everything looks good on paper, and then when when the rubber meets the road, there's usually some tweaks that, just the use case is a little bit differently in reality than it was on paper. So it just depends.